This boarding pass looked fraudulent. The word fraudulent hung in the air, attaching itself to Zara, the black woman, lingering in the minds of nearby passengers. Suspicions spread like contagion. "Step aside, ma'am," the airline staff ordered. "Is there a problem with my ticket?" Zara asked, voice even, calm, no defensive tone, no raised volume. "We need to verify this." "Step aside, please," Brenda insisted. Stone, the gate agent, acted as though she'd discovered contraband rather than a legitimate first-class boarding pass. She made a show of typing into her computer, glancing at Zara with thinly veiled skepticism. Soon, Captain Victoria Westbrook arrived and, in a shocking escalation, slapped Zara across the face. The impact echoed through the suddenly silent cabin. Would you like to know what triggered a slap that ended careers and exposed a system hiding in plain sight? This story reveals the consequences when a woman, assumed to be nothing and targeted for her skin color, stood up and revealed who she truly was. If you stand against injustice and prejudice, comment "Justice for Zara" and hit subscribe for more stories like this. It all began with Commander Zara Jackson. Every morning for 20 years, her alarm jolted her awake at 4:30 a.m. This morning was no different. Except today, she wasn't reaching for her uniform. One day, without the badge, she told herself, sliding open her closet door. After decades representing her department, today she would travel as herself, just another passenger heading to Chicago for the National Police Chiefs Conference. Her fingers hovered over outfits before settling on something uncomfortable. "No one needs to know who I am today," she thought. Checking her travel app, a notification surprised her. "Congratulations, your first-class ticket is ready." Zara smiled, tucking her police chief badge into an inner pocket of her carry-on. "Won't need this today," she whispered, not knowing how wrong she was. Across town, in Atlantic Airways' gleaming pilot briefing room, Captain Victoria Westbrook commanded attention. "We're seeing a disturbing trend in passenger demographics," she said to flight attendant Melissa Parker, voice just low enough for privacy. "The airline is letting just anyone into first class these days." Melissa nodded, understanding the unspoken message. "Don't worry, Captain. I know exactly how to handle them when they try to sit where they don't belong," she said. Tori straightened her already perfect uniform. "That's why I requested you for first class. You understand our clientele. The standards we maintain aren't just about service. They're about preserving a certain atmosphere." Their laughter carried across the room, exchanged glances among diverse crew members acknowledging what was coming. But on this particular Tuesday morning, Flight 1143 to Chicago would end differently. At Newark International, the terminal bustled with morning travelers. A sea of humanity rushed to destinations unknown. For most, it was just another Tuesday. For Zara Jackson, it would become the most documented example of racial profiling in aviation history. She noticed a Hispanic family, a mother, father, and 3 young children, struggling with the airport directory, confusion etched across their faces. Without hesitation, Zara approached them, offering help in fluent Spanish, a skill honed during her years in community policing. The family's relief was immediate. She translated gate information, pointed them toward their destination. The mother grasped Zara's hand in gratitude. For a moment, Zara remembered why she'd entered public service, to help people navigate systems not designed for them. Captain Westbrook, passing through the terminal, noticed the interaction. She paused, eyes narrowing. Authority radiated from her pressed uniform. "When you're finished," she called out, not even waiting for Zara to turn, "clean up that spill near the lounge. It's been there for 20 minutes. Her voice carried the unquestioned expectation of immediate compliance. Zara straightened. "I'm a passenger," she said calmly. "Not an airport employee. No anger, no indignation. Just a simple correction of fact." Westbrook's expression didn't change. Instead, her lip curled slightly. "You all look the same in this terminal. She muttered loud enough to be heard, then continued on her privileged path. The words hung in the air. Zara took a deep breath. 20 years in law enforcement had taught her which battles to fight. Not this one. Not yet. 15 minutes later, Zara approached the security checkpoint. Travelers efficiently removed laptops and tablets. Zara's carry-on contained nothing unusual. Clothes for 3 days, toiletries, conference materials, a small gift for her daughter. The scanner cleared her without issue. And yet, step aside, ma'am, the CSA agent directed. Blue-gloved hands reached for her bag. His name tag read, Red Hoffman. His eyes never met hers. Random screening, the word hung in the air. Nearby, white passengers passed without scrutiny. Businessmen, an elderly couple, a teenager. Random? Statistically improbable, Zara noted. Agent Hoffman rifled through her belongings with unnecessary roughness, creating a spectacle of suspicion. "What's this hard object?" he demanded, voice loud enough for others to hear. "Just my travel toiletry case," Zara replied evenly, maintaining the composure that had carried her through countless high-pressure situations. Through the expedited line, Captain Westbrook watched with smug satisfaction. "Security knows who to check," she commented to another pilot, voice not lowered. Complicity through inaction. After finding nothing, Hoffman hastily repacked her bag, avoiding eye contact. No apology, no acknowledgement of the unnecessary delay. Just uncomfortable efficiency. But the damage was done. Westbrook had taken note. Zara had become a target. At Gate 37, premium passengers gathered, first-class boarding in progress. Zara approached, boarding pass ready. Gate agent Brenda. Williams glanced at her, eyes flicking to Westbrook. A silent communication passed between them, imperceptible to most, but Zara, trained to read such signals, recognized it immediately. "Economy boarding isn't for another 45 minutes, Brenda announced, ensuring all eyes turned toward Zara. She placed her pass on the counter. Calm, factual, emotionless. A master of de-escalation. Brenda, playing the game, examined it like a relic, turning it to the light. "This seems unusual," she declared, drawing the moment out for maximum scrutiny. "Is there a problem with my ticket?" Zara asked again. Calm, neutral. Nothing that could be mischaracterized as aggression, a common accusation for black passengers merely questioning mistreatment. "We need to verify this." "Step aside, please," Brenda said, emphasizing her skepticism, as if Zara had smuggled contraband. 5 white passengers approached, each waved through with cursory checks and smiles. The contrast was glaring, familiar, undeniable. Brenda summoned her supervisor. "I think we have a fraudulent boarding pass," she said, the word fraudulent hanging in the air, attaching itself to Zara in the minds of those around. Suspicion spread. Michael Chen, supervisor of 15 years, approached, weary but efficient. A few keystrokes later, "Ticket is valid. First-class seat 2A, platinum member." Brenda's disappointment was visible. "Are you sure? It doesn't seem right." Westbrook now stepped in. "Is there an issue with boarding?" she asked, as if she hadn't been monitoring the situation. Brenda emphasized, "This woman," a subtle, dehumanizing distinction, not lost on those aware of discriminatory language. Westbrook snatched the boarding pass from Michael's hands. "How did you obtain this?" she demanded, implying Zara could not possibly afford such a ticket. "I bought it with my money," Zara said, adding pointedly, "Not that it's relevant." Professional calm, but her words cracked Westbrook's facade. "We need to verify your payment method," Westbrook insisted. "Fraud," she emphasized, associating it with Zara alone. Michael shifted uncomfortably, caught between professionalism and self-preservation. "Captain, the ticket is confirmed in our system," he said. Westbrook's authority carried weight. "I want this verified again," she commanded. 10 minutes of deliberate delay, 10 minutes of quiet humiliation, 10 minutes as other passengers boarded, and Zara remained the target. Standing aside as her right to travel was questioned, Zara felt the gaze of some passengers, curious, sympathetic, while others deliberately avoided eye contact. They witnessed discrimination, but were unwilling to intervene. A call was made to customer service. Zara's account was verified once more, her platinum status confirmed, every possible check performed. She waited, dignity intact, despite the orchestrated effort to undermine it. Finally, she was cleared to board. As Zara walked down the jet bridge, she knew Captain Westbrook was following closely behind. The confrontation wasn't over. It was simply changing venues. The narrow confines created the perfect stage for the next act, semi-private, few witnesses, Zara isolated from any potential allies. Just before the aircraft door, the captain struck. "This bag is oversized," she declared, suddenly grabbing Zara's standard carry-on, the same bag thousands of passengers brought on board daily without issue, the same bag Zara had used on 87 flights over the past 3 years. "Please don't touch my personal belongings," Zara requested. Voice firm but controlled, a professional boundary clearly stated. But Captain Westbrook had already been challenged 3 times. By Zara's polite correction in the terminal, by her valid first-class ticket, and now by her insistence on basic respect. In the captain's world, such challenges could not stand, especially from someone she deemed inferior. Her response was immediate and violent. She yanked the bag with unnecessary force, spilling its contents across the jet bridge floor. Neatly, folded clothes, conference materials, a toiletry bag, and a snow globe meant for Zara's daughter, now rolling toward the walkway's edge. "What are you hiding in here?" the captain demanded, kicking the toiletry bag aside with a polished shoe. The accusation was baseless. The bag had passed security, had been verified multiple times, but humiliation was the point. Power was exercised simply because it could be. Zara maintained her composure, bending to collect her belongings, even as several passengers pulled out phones to record the escalating scene. "You're being aggressive now," Captain Westbrook claimed, portraying the calm black woman as threatening, while her own behavior grew increasingly volatile. A classic inversion Zara had witnessed countless times in her law enforcement career. Aggressors claiming victimhood, authority figures manufacturing threats where none existed. Dignity intact, Zara gathered her scattered possessions. The snow globe stopped just short of falling, her conference materials spread across the floor, her private items now part of a public spectacle. "I'll be filing a complaint," she said quietly, aware that in a system designed to protect those in power, the words themselves might carry little weight. After navigating the gauntlet of random screenings, verification delays, and a baggage violation, Zara finally boarded the aircraft. Her shoulders relaxed slightly as she settled into seat 2A, the first-row window seat she had legitimately purchased. A small victory, after 30 minutes of calculated harassment. She stowed her now disheveled carry-on beneath the seat in front of her, rather than in the overhead bin, a defensive choice to keep her belongings close after Captain Westbrook's invasive search. The snow globe, miraculously unbroken, remained clutched in her hand before she carefully wrapped it in a scarf and placed it in her bag. Around her, the familiar rhythm of pre-flight preparations unfolded. Flight attendant Melissa Parker moved efficiently through the first-class cabin, offering pre-departure beverages to passengers in 1C, 1D, 2B, all white businessmen who received immediate attention, warm smiles, and solicitous inquiries about their comfort. Melissa's eyes slid past Zara as though she weren't there. Not once, not twice, repeatedly. A deliberate invisibility imposed by calculated neglect. The contrast was stark. The passenger in 2B received his second scotch while Zara went completely unacknowledged. "Excuse me," Zara said as Melissa passed for the fourth time, voice measured, professional. "Could I have a bottle of water, please?" Melissa continued down the aisle, not pausing, not turning, not acknowledging the request. A flawless performance of deliberate deftness, only interrupted when she responded instantly to 3B moments later. Zara observed this choreography of discrimination with a trained eye, documenting selective treatment. Who was served, who was ignored, who received the benefit of the doubt, who was presumed guilty. Only difference. Today, she was the target. Minutes passed. Hot towels were distributed, skipping 2A. Drink orders taken, skipping 2A. Magazines offered, skipping 2A. The message was unmistakable. You do not belong here. Your comfort does not matter. Zara pressed the call button above her seat. Within seconds, Melissa deactivated it without a word, without even looking, continuing preparations as if nothing had happened. The man in 2B, observing the exchange, protested. "Excuse me," he said. "The woman next to me has asked for water 3 times. Could you please help her?" Melissa's smile barely shifted. "I'll get to her when I have time," she said, tone implying that time might never come. The systematic denial of service, the very essence of first-class privilege, continued with methodical precision. Zara opened her notes app, documenting each incident with timestamps, descriptions, and names. Years of investigative experience had taught her the value of contemporaneous notes, precise details recorded in the moment, not reconstructed later. She didn't know how they would be used yet, but instinct told her to preserve the evidence. Then Captain Westbrook appeared at the front of the cabin, announcing a routine pre-flight safety check, something Zara had never seen a captain perform in 15 years of flying. This was no routine check. It was a continuation of targeted harassment. Westbrook's eyes scanned the first-class cabin, locking on to Zara. Her expression hardened, lips pressing into a thin line of disapproval. She approached slowly, stopping beside seat 2A. "There must be some mistake," she announced loudly, ensuring other passengers could hear, implying Zara's presence was an error rather than legitimate. "No mistake," Zara responded calmly, gesturing to her boarding pass. "This is my assigned seat." Captain Westbrook's voice rose. "People like you don't belong in first class on my aircraft." The words hung in the air, explicit, undeniable, witnessed by the cabin full of passengers. Shock rippled through the first-class cabin. A woman in 1B audibly gasped. The businessman in 2B shifted uncomfortably. Couples exchanged worried glances. Zara's question cut to the heart of the matter. "What exactly do you mean by people like me? A trap?" There was no non-discriminatory answer. "You know exactly what I mean," Westbrook responded. "You're out of place here." The words carried centuries of history. Who belongs where? Who decides? Who suffers for crossing invisible boundaries? Recognizing the historical significance of the moment, Zara reached for her phone to document it, not for compensation, but for accountability, so it could not later be denied, minimized, or rewritten. Melissa materialized instantly, blocking her phone, declaring, "No recording allowed during safety checks." The coordination between captain and flight attendant revealing their practice dynamic. One creates the confrontation, the other enforces arbitrary rules to prevent documentation. But it was too late. Other passengers had begun recording discreetly from seats 1D, 3A, and 4C. Captain Westbrook's frustration escalated as she realized control of the narrative was slipping. She pointed her finger directly in Zara's face, close enough for her to feel the displacement of air. "You're being disruptive," she accused, voice tightening with anger. The accusation was absurd. Zara had not moved, raised her voice, or done anything but exist in a space the captain believed she should not occupy. "I'm sitting quietly," Zara replied. In my assigned seat, Zara remained calm, measured, and professional. Despite the escalating harassment, her hands stayed visible on the armrests, a habitual position from years of de-escalation training. There was nothing threatening about her posture, nothing that could justify further escalation. But Captain Westbrook had no interest in de-escalation. "Your tone and body language are aggressive and threatening," the captain claimed, crafting a reality that existed only in her perception. It was a familiar tactic to anyone familiar with racial profiling, interpreting neutral behavior as dangerous when performed by certain bodies. The businessman in seat 2B, who had witnessed the interaction from less than 2 feet away, finally intervened. "She hasn't moved or raised her voice," he said, addressing Captain Westbrook directly. "Stay out of this," Westbrook snapped. Her authority, openly challenged by a passenger she normally commanded with deference, seemed to crack. "She's creating a hostile environment," she barked. The irony was unmistakable. The only hostility came from her. The tension, the anxiety, the charged atmosphere, all traced back to the captain's escalating behavior. Zara recognized the danger. Calm but firm, she stated the truth. "The only hostility is coming from you and your staff." Witnesses silently validated her words. That was all it took to push Captain Westbrook past her breaking point. "That's it!" she shouted, face flushed. "Melissa, call security. Remove this passenger." Melissa moved to the cabin intercom with practiced efficiency, a skill notably absent when passengers requested routine service. "Security to first class," she announced. "Disruptive passenger." The words echoed through the aircraft, instantly transforming a first-class seat into a crime scene and a paying passenger into a suspected threat. 3 minutes passed in tense silence. Westbrook hovered near Zara as if she might attempt escape, though she hadn't moved from her seat. Passengers discreetly recorded the scene, documenting what many silently recognized as a career-ending abuse of authority. 2 airport security officers arrived at the aircraft door, professional yet confused. They saw no disruption, only a composed black woman seated quietly in 2A while the captain fumed nearby. "Remove her immediately!" Westbrook demanded. "She's threatened my crew!" The accusation was both false and impossible to reconcile with the calm, composed scene before them. Yet the security officers acted without hesitation. "I've done nothing wrong," Zara stated quietly. "This is racial profiling." "There she goes, playing the race card," Westbrook shouted, dismissing the claim, revealing her prejudice more clearly than any witness testimony could. Zara, deliberate and unhurried, reached toward the inner pocket of her jacket. "Perhaps my identification will clarify," she said, moving in a clearly non-threatening way. Westbrook's reaction was instantaneous and shocking. Without warning, she slapped Zara hard across the face. The cabin went silent. "She's reaching for a weapon!" the captain shouted, justifying her assault after the fact. Time seemed to suspend. Passengers froze. Security officers momentarily paralyzed, Melissa's hand covering her mouth in recognition that a line had been crossed. Zara's hand continued its deliberate motion, interrupted only by the captain's violence. From her jacket, she produced not a weapon, but a badge, a gold shield instantly recognizable to anyone in law enforcement. She held it up, silent, letting it speak for itself. Recognition dawned across multiple faces. The senior security officer's voice cracked as he addressed the cabin. "Chief Jackson of the Metropolitan Police." Posture straightened instinctively, the transformation instantaneous. Westbrook's face drained of color. The hand that had struck Zara now trembled. The absolute authority she wielded seconds earlier evaporated, replaced by the dawning horror of irreversible consequence. "I need backup and arrest support at Gate 37, the officer announced clearly. "Captain Victoria Westbrook is being detained for assaulting Chief Zara Jackson." In a single moment, the power dynamic inverted. The woman repeatedly told she didn't belong, The one dismissed, ignored, and assaulted was the highest-ranking law enforcement officer in the jurisdiction. The revelation froze time in first class. Passengers held their breath as Westbrook stood backed against the bulkhead, her hand still raised, the color completely drained from her face. Decades of unchecked authority collapsed in an instant. Senior Security Officer Robert Diaz, 15 years with the airport, overrode shock with training, unholstering handcuffs. "Captain Victoria Westbrook, you are under arrest for assault," he announced, the words resonating throughout the cabin. "You can't do this," Westbrook protested, voice rising. "I'm the captain." "Your rank doesn't place you above the law," Diaz stated, securing the cuffs with a metallic click. The physical manifestation of authority had transferred. Flight attendant Melissa Parker, frozen until now, tried to intervene. "There must be some misunderstanding," she pleaded. Officer Sarah Lynn, newer but equally professional, stepped forward. "Step back," she warned, "or you'll be arrested for obstruction." Melissa finally withdrew, self-preservation overriding loyalty. The news spread. Economy-class passengers recorded through the dividing curtain, whispers rippling through the cabin. The captain had slapped a passenger. The passenger was a police chief. They were arresting the captain. Atlantic Airways station manager Kenneth Williams, 22 years with the airline, rushed aboard. Red-faced and alarmed, he had received 3 emergency alerts simultaneously. Captain being arrested, high-profile passenger assaulted, departure delayed. Zara remained seated, calm, composed, and professional. "Preserve all security footage?" "Immediately," she instructed, voice firm. "Every camera angle, terminal, gate, jet bridge, aircraft must be saved." Her experience told her how quickly evidence could vanish when powerful institutions faced liability. Kenneth nodded, already acting, as the airline's corporate machinery whirred into emergency mode. In under 90 seconds, the incident had escalated to the highest levels, the frontline authority of a passenger now commanding the corporate response. Operating at unprecedented speed to distance the airline from the unfolding catastrophe, Kenneth turned the tablet to the video conference. Premium Airways CEO Richard Hamilton appeared on screen, his expression reflecting the gravity appropriate to a $4 billion company facing potential brand annihilation via viral video. Chief Jackson Hamilton bypassed corporate pleasantries. "On behalf of Premium Airways, I want to personally apologize for the inexcusable treatment you experienced. I assure you that Captain Westbrook's actions do not represent our policies or our values." The carefully crafted statement, likely vetted by legal even in these hasty circumstances, rang hollow against the mounting evidence spreading across social media. Captain Westbrook's behavior was not an isolated incident. It was the culmination of coordinated harassment by multiple staff members over an extended period. As if to underscore the point, Melissa Parker was approached mid-statement by 2 uniformed airline supervisors who had boarded the aircraft. "Flight attendant Parker, your employment with Premium Airways is terminated, effective immediately," the senior supervisor announced, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Please, surrender your credentials and exit the aircraft." Swift employment actions normally proceed through investigations, hearings, and union consultations. But this abrupt move revealed the airline's desperation to contain the damage. Melissa's face crumpled as 27 witnesses recorded her escorted departure. Her career ended in the same public space where she had watched Zara's humiliation unfold. Through the open aircraft door, gate agent Brenda Williams could be seen at the podium, approaching security. Her confused expression shifted to shock as her airline ID was stripped from her neck. 3 minutes later, a replacement gate agent took her position. The machinery of damage control accelerated. A replacement captain was summoned from the crew. Lounge with emergency priority, hurrying down the jet bridge, followed by a full replacement cabin crew. The airline's protocol for handling cabin disruptions had been expanded to unprecedented scale, replacing every staff member who had interacted. With Chief Jackson, passengers shared videos with authorities and each other. Despite in-flight connectivity not yet being activated, modern technology ensured that justice unfolded in public view, live-streamed and shared across platforms, immune to institutional cover-ups or revised narratives. Captain Victoria Westbrook was led through the terminal in handcuffs, the ultimate symbol of authority reversed. Her uniform, once a shield against accountability, now provided a stark backdrop for her restraints, amplifying the visual impact of her downfall. Media crews, already present for unrelated stories, pivoted toward the breaking development, the footage destined for evening newscasts nationwide. Announcements echoed through the terminal. All Premium Airways staff report for emergency bias training. The public address system had transformed internal damage control into a public admission, the airline acknowledging systemic issues while desperately attempting containment. The consequences extended beyond the airport. At Metropolitan Police Headquarters, the holding cell door closed on Captain Westbrook with a definitive thud, the sound of privilege suspended. The stark, concrete room contrasted sharply with the command authority of the cockpit she had occupied hours earlier. Her uniform had been exchanged for standard-issue detention clothing, a final equalization. Across town, in a hastily converted conference room for witness interviews, Zara Jackson provided her official statement. Her account unfolded, with meticulous precision, chronological, factual, devoid of emotional coloring, but rich in verifiable detail. Her contemporaneous notes from the aircraft proved invaluable, strengthening an already overwhelming case. In the booking area, Captain Westbrook's mugshot captured a woman unraveling in real time. Eyes wide, mouth slightly open, a face confronting. Accountability, perhaps, for the first time. Within hours, the image appeared online, juxtaposed against her professional headshot in a stark before and after. Back at the airport, Chief Jackson reviewed passenger testimonies collected by responding officers. Patterns emerged not merely of one incident, but across Captain Westbrook's career. A black businessman questioned about a first-class ticket. Months earlier, a Middle Eastern doctor removed from a flight due to the captain's discomfort, a Hispanic flight attendant reassigned for her communication skills, despite flawless English. Discrimination had operated systematically under institutional protection until today. Within 3 hours of the incident, a representative from the Federal Aviation Administration arrived at police headquarters, an unprecedentedly rapid response for a regulatory agency. Their statement was unequivocal. Captain Westbrook's pilot license was suspended pending investigation, provisional action typically reserved for pilots suspected of substance abuse or severe safety violations, a reflection of the incident's gravity at the federal level. As evening approached, Captain Westbrook sat alone in her holding cell awaiting arraignment. Chief Zara Jackson prepared to address a hastily assembled press conference. Across social media platforms, the hashtag #DerFlyingWhileBlack became a global trending topic, millions sharing their own experiences of discrimination in aviation. Flight 1143 was never just about one slap. It was about who belonged where, who decided, and what happened when unchecked authority met unexpected power. A few days later, in courtroom 4B, former Captain Westbrook sat at the defendant's table in a conservative Navy suit, unable to disguise the weight she had lost in pre-trial detention. Gone was the commanding presence, the reflexive authority. In its place sat a woman diminished not by accountability itself, but by a lifelong assumption she would never face it. Judge Eleanor Michaels, 32 years on the federal bench, reviewed the file with deliberate thoroughness. The courtroom held its breath. Removing her reading glasses, a gesture regulars knew preceded significant statements, she spoke. The defendant has pled guilty to all charges. Based on the overwhelming evidence and plea agreement with prosecutors, This court sentences you to 6 months probation, 200 hours of community service, and most significantly, a lifetime ban from employment in the aviation industry. This case sends a message. No position of authority places you above the law. The uniform was meant to signify responsibility, not immunity. Your actions betrayed the trust of your employer, your passengers, and the public. Westbrook kept her gaze fixed on the table, nodding almost imperceptibly. The judge detailed probation terms: mandatory anti-bias training, community service in underserved communities, and permanent surrender of her pilot's license. Across town, Premium Airways. Executives signed final documents on a $40 million class action settlement. The fund would compensate passengers of Flight 1143 and hundreds of others who came forward with similar experiences. Non-monetary provisions included mandatory bias training for all customer-facing staff, revised complaint procedures, transparent reporting of discrimination incidents, and permanent industry blacklisting of employees whose patterns of discriminatory behavior had been exposed. Justice served, but true accountability required systemic change. 6 months later, Chief Zara Jackson stood before a joint task force of transportation executives, regulatory officials, and civil rights leaders. No longer casual, she wore the formal uniform of her office, stars on her shoulders reflecting overhead lights. Accountability without systemic change is just theater, she said. Our goal is not punishment, but transformation, creating systems where such incidents become impossible rather than merely punishable. Across the industry, transformation unfolded. Airlines implemented blind passenger processing, removing subjective judgments that allowed discrimination to flourish. Anonymous reporting systems, accessible via QR codes, created unprecedented transparency. Security footage from gates and aircraft was automatically preserved upon complaint. 3 major airlines reported a 70% decrease in discrimination claims within 90 days. Diversity initiatives transformed hiring practices, especially in leadership positions. What had begun as reputation management evolved into competitive advantage. Diverse leadership correlated with improved customer satisfaction and reduced complaints. At an aviation academy, Chief Jackson addressed a graduating class of future pilots, flight attendants, air traffic controllers, and support staff. Authority requires accountability, she told them, her words live-streamed nationwide. The power you hold over passengers, their safety, their dignity, comes with the responsibility to wield it equitably. Your uniform is not a shield against consequences, but a visible reminder of your obligation to those you serve. Among the audience were former Flight 1143 passengers now working as compliance officers. Their first-hand experiences of discrimination had been transformed into expertise and purpose, representing a generation for whom diversity was not a corporate buzzword, but an operational imperative. Victoria Westbrook participated in mandatory anti-bias programs alongside others who had abused authority: police officers, teachers, managers. Change began with acknowledging harm. She began writing letters to Chief Jackson, passengers and colleagues she had wronged, seeking recognition of the patterns she had once defended. My actions were not seen as discrimination, she wrote. I saw it as maintaining standards, exercising judgment, doing my job. I couldn't recognize the difference between authority and power. One exists to serve, the other to elevate oneself. I can't undo what I did, but I can acknowledge it without excuses. Some recipients rejected her outreach. Others responded with their own accounts. A few engaged in ongoing correspondence, recognizing that her journey toward understanding served a larger purpose than punishment or absolution. Thousands of miles away, at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, Zara's daughter began her journey toward becoming a commercial pilot, drawn not by her mother's ordeal, but by her transformative response, turning individual injustice into systemic change. My mom never told me I couldn't succeed in spaces where people like us weren't. Welcome, she told a documentary crew on her first solo flight.